Hello everyone, Mr. B here. And so yesterday you learned about classical conditioning, and today you learned about operant conditioning. And just like yesterday, we're going to test your knowledge. And of course, if you haven't seen the first video on Schoology, then what are you doing? Watch that one first, because this one is just going to test your knowledge. And so just like yesterday, I'm going to show you a series of scenarios, and it's going to be up to you to figure out if it's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, or negative punishment. And so let's get right into it with our first scenario. And so in this first scenario, it looks like Mr. B had studied really hard because he aced his test. And so because of that, he's going to study even harder next time. So what kind of operant conditioning is this? So hopefully you said that this was positive reinforcement because he got a good grade on the test, which is adding something, so it's positive, and then because of it, he is now more likely to study for his next exam. So it is increasing a behavior, so it's a reinforcement, so positive reinforcement. Now, let's look at this next one. Now in this one, Mr. B doesn't want to clean his room, but man, his parents are just complaining and complaining and complaining, and then finally, all right, he's going to clean his room and organize his socks. And as soon as he does, the parent stops nagging. So what kind of operant conditioning is this? Now, hopefully, you said that this was negative reinforcement, because essentially what's happening is once he does the behavior, once he's cleaning, which we're trying to increase, so a reinforcement, that nagging of the parents goes away. So it's negative. It's taking something away. So therefore, it is a negative reinforcement. All right, the third one. We're at the school. Looks like it's the mailboxes, and it's payday. So, Mr. B just got his paycheck, and now he's much happier about working, and he's more willing to come back to school, do his job to get that next paycheck. Just kidding, I mean, he really does like this job. But what kind of operant conditioning is this? All right, hopefully you said that this was a positive reinforcement, because again, there's something being added, the paycheck, making that money, so it's positive, and then the whole purpose of it is to try to increase the amount of work that Mr. B is doing, or to increase the likelihood of him to keep working, so it's a reinforcement. So positive reinforcement. All right, we're going on to the next one. Now, in this one, it looks like Mr. B is a little stressed out, and is that a cigarette? Oh, and it looks like smoking is relieving his anxiety. So now, the next time that Mr. B is feeling anxious, he's now more likely to want to smoke that cigarette. And hopefully you were able to tell it wasn't a real cigarette. It was a pencil. And please don't smoke. But this brings about an interesting question. What kind of operant conditioning is this? All right, hopefully you guys said that this was a negative reinforcement, because as I mentioned, Mr. B is now more likely to go for a cigarette. And the reason why is because it took away those feelings of anxiety. So, increasing that behavior is a reinforcement. Taking something away is negative, so it's a negative reinforcement. All right, we're halfway there with this one. So, in this one, it looks like Mr. B is doing some work, and he answered a question, but, it looks like it was wrong, and he's being laughed at for it. And it looks like he's far less likely to answer a question again. So what kind of operant conditioning is this? All right, so in this instance, this is actually a positive punishment, because there's something being added. It's being laughed at. It's being made fun of. So that's being added to the situation. And because of that embarrassment, Mr. B is now less likely to try to answer a question. So it is decreasing a behavior. So that's a punishment. So this would be an example of a positive punishment. And it's something that we as teachers need to be aware of, that, it's just like we say all the time. There's no such thing as a stupid question, unless you're trying to derail the conversation sometimes. But even then, it can be fun. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, so in this one, it looks like Mr. B's been working really hard, staring at that screen, and it's causing a headache. So, it looks like, yep, it's going for some aspirin or Tylenol, some sort of pain medication for a headache. So now, the next time that Mr. B is feeling stressed out, what's he going to do? He's going to reach for that Tylenol or similar medication. So, what kind of operant conditioning is this? All right, hopefully you guys said that this is a negative reinforcement. And the reason why is it's a reinforcement because now Mr. B is more likely to reach for that pain medication. And it's negative because it took away the headache. It took away the pain. So, negative reinforcement. All right, we're almost done. Next one. Uh-oh, Mr. B is late for work. Oh, and Mr. Hoffman is right there, and Mr. B just got fired. He just lost his job. Well, I don't think he's going to be late for his next job after that experience. So what kind of operant conditioning is this? Now, hopefully you guys said that this was a negative punishment. It's negative because what was taken away was Mr. B's job. And because it was taken away, he's far less likely to be late to his next job, if he can find a job in this economy. So it is a negative punishment. Negative, taking away. Punishment, decreasing that behavior. All right, just 3 more to go. So in this one, it's back to Mr. B organizing his socks. But it looks like this time he's kind of doing it without any need for a nag. But here comes Mr. B's parent, and looks like he got some allowance for doing his laundry. And he is far more likely now to keep doing that laundry so we can keep getting paid. So what kind of operant conditioning is this? Hopefully you guys said that this was a positive reinforcement. It's positive because what's being added is that moolah, that allowance, and so because of this, Mr. B is now more likely to do his laundry. So it is increasing a behavior, making it a reinforcement. All right, just 2 more to go. Let's see what's next. Looks like Mr. B is on his phone in the middle of class. That's not good because, I called it. Mr. B took his phone away. Well, chances are he's not going to be texting anymore after this. So what kind of operant conditioning is this? Now, hopefully you guys said that this was negative punishment. Negative because obviously the phone was taken away. And because of this, now Mr. B is going to be less likely to be texting in class because he doesn't want to lose his phone again. So, negative punishment. And now we're on the last one. So in this one, it's Lucifer. But she's not where she should be. So we're going to go and we're going to spray her with some water. And to be serious, what would have supposed to happen was Lucy was supposed to go off of where she's supposed to be. But we don't believe in spraying cats with water in this household. So a little bit of make-believe. But essentially what was supposed to happen is the cat was where it wasn't supposed to be, sprayed with some uncomfortable water, cat less likely to be in that area. So what kind of operant conditioning would this be? Alright, so hopefully you guys said that this was a positive punishment. It's positive because we were adding the spray of water. We were adding that uncomfortable kind of... And then it is a punishment because ultimately we're trying to decrease that behavior of being where Lucy isn't supposed to be. So it was a positive punishment. And there we go. Hopefully these examples were easy for you. But again, just like with classical conditioning, there's kind of four main things to remember. You need to remember what it means to be positive versus negative, with positive just meaning that it is adding something to the situation. It has nothing to do with good or bad. It's just adding something. Whereas negative is when we are taking something away. So we have positive or negative. Then we have either a reinforcement or a punishment. A reinforcement is trying to increase a behavior, and then a punishment is trying to decrease a behavior. And if you can remember these four main things for operant conditioning, you'll be good.